By the time I had only 3 levels, I couldn't see an empty floor space below me, only a solid lake of meat, rippling with the unnatural life of the pit of deformed blood-soaked maggots. I could see pieces of beginning to climb up after me. Squisting my blindly, I figured that the stairwell, or simply creaking or creeping snail-like up the side of the tower. I managed to catch up to me or even cut me off momentarily, but the shovel turned out to be an excellent choice that I couldn't smash or severe, but heaved over the other side. Something like Inside Out Penguin toddled up to my feet on the 4th level. One good smack, and it crunched wetly into a perfect comoscal disc, still wiggling uselessly. The rancid brains burst out like spoiled pumpkins under my wrath. I riving a mass of intestines, and explicitly squealed and died. Once I chopped off that was loosely employing as head end. A giant heap of pinkish slime gave me some momentarily trouble on the 6th level, shrugging off below another until I was stricken by its overwhelming chemical stink and brain dish over my flares, hoping that it might be flammable, as I thought I knew exactly what I was thinking. It retreated like a snail into rusted metal drum that had been lunging out. Though individually pathetic, the meat creatures were persistent and increasingly bizarre. Somewhere on the 8th, possibly 9th level, I turned around to find a big fish head attempting to sneak up behind me, tiptoeing comedically onto a pair of eerie human feminine legs. It froze up when I coughed, as if though realizing too late that I had been watching it for a good 4 or 5 minutes aggravated. Somewhat, at least, sneaking steps. Some fat, some white bug, a loose woodhouse, tumbled out of the fish's mouth, chittered out angrily, and fled onto its hind legs before I knocked the fish thing over the edge. Huh? The further I progressed, the weirder the things emerging from the factory's plumbing. The things that should have grown festered far longer into the lightness. Metal bowels. I could barely even see some of them, likely an animal or body part. I pursued the yellow tubes looped over like angry inchworms, and tentacle black blobs floundered like a stranded fish in a pool of their own yellow-green serentians. I was wagging in war against the hot dog scraps from Planet X. I was beginning to get cocky. No matter how handorous every meat beast had an easily weak point, I was increasingly confident that I could make it at home alive, wondering perhaps if they had put the only world under some sort of hypophonic spell because they were simply too powerful, too dangerous for them to defend against. I was beginning to feel like a hero after all, like I was living on my own video game. The self-important high was cut short above the 15th level. When I reached, a wrench was thrown into my hit things with the shovel strategy. The thing blocking my path was not made out of meat, not from the outside at least. It appeared to be made entirely of iron, rugged even nearly by the black torso, like a department store. Mannequin stood up on top of free joint, knobbly legs, and its single arm determined to pair in a pair of jagged tongs, periodically clacking shut. The oversized head resembled that of a huge pot or boiler, with a pair of cartoonish painted-on eyes. An orange-yellow glow could be seen through its many cracks and vents. I didn't suspect that there would be a shovel that could do to this one. It had either backed off or nor approached it. It just simply stood there, waiting, daring me to make a move. I could see a dense river out of meat bodies surging along the path only 3 levels below, making the same slow spiral around the tower as I was, fragile or not. There was no way I could help keep their numbers at bay forever. I wondered if I'd been taken alive. Dozens of images flashed through my mind, The eggheads, the things I had seen in PETA propaganda videos. Any one of them could be my fate. Let's just talk about this phenomenon. The voice snapped me back to me at reality. If you could call this a reality. It had come right from in front of me, from the robot cook or whatever it was. What? It spoke again. It doesn't have to be this way, Missy Georgie. Besides the mangled grasp of the pronouns, it spoke English with remarkable clarity. Its voice was soft and feminine, with just like a slight metallic quality. I'm sorry, was all I could manage, still dazed. We could still put you right back where you belong, little Fingadoc. We could fix you up like the rest. You'll never know. I knew exactly what it was talking about. The brainwashing. As far as I know, I was making out the first contact with a non-human intelligence. I had billions of questions about what they were going to do to us, where they came from, and what else was out there in the universe, or multiverse, or whatever we might be living in. Only thing actually came out. Screw yourselves. It sighed a hollow metal sigh, a little smoke escaping from its face vent. It seemed to have sink at a little of response. If that's how you want it, whatchamacallit woozle. It rose threateningly on its hind legs. I realized what it reminded me of, a barbecue grill. In the blink of an eye, it crawled, its arms shot out, and clamped around the handle of my precious shovel, effortlessly to tear it from my grip and dropping it to the walkway. Crap. It shot out again, and this time it got me by the neck. I slammed onto the ground, taking the apparent care not to choke me just yet, but at least at considerable pain. Its legs clanged noiselessly as it positioned itself directly over me and planted its metal ass directly into my stomach, pinging me down tighter. Lines of black grease began to roll down from the faint's artificial face, sizzling furiously. I screamed weakly for the creature's grasp. When a single tiny droplet met the exposed skin of my arm, I felt like I was being branded. The monster giggled. It then spoke out the laughter, like if it was reading from a bad book or bad script. If its eyes had been real, it would have been looking directly at mine. If I had not had lips, I am sure it would have been smiling. It bent forward. The grease was now cascading in a thick curtain, threatening any moment to start raining in hissing screams into my face. The claw around my neck tightened, and finally pinching shut my airways. It was going to burn my eyes out while I was being strangled to death. I let go of the thing's arm to shield my face as best I could, wishing I had not foresighted to be the wearing heavier grade gloves as I waited for the torrent of bottling grease. The thing's giggling, reaching a high fever pitch. It stopped. The grease didn't come. Removing my hands from my face, I saw that the monster head had turned away from me. You! It shrieked. I couldn't tell what it was looking at. Unexpectedly, loosening its grip on a grasp around my neck and perched onto its feet, I could see small white shapes out of the corner of its eyes. Ugh! Gross! 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 It wailed like a child, and the rubbery of hobogoblins scrambled up its metal body like boneless gecko lizards. It started to stumble, trying its best to pick off the teeming pests with its single arm, but they slipped through the claw like jelly. I wasn't so sure how long I would be distracted, as I dove for my shovel before teetering painfully to my feet. I could see the swelling legion from the meat just below my level. Vile fiends! Vile! They're in my vents! I was almost too fascinated to act. The hobogoblins had peered and laid off of the rusty grill head, exposing oily, blackened little form from underneath. It was too tangled and burnt to make out, but I could see various limbs waving frantically to keep the gremlin things at bay. I raised the shovel, prepped to strike. All at once, the little creatures snapped their little heads in my direction, and dropped like flies from the metal being, falling down to the path of the scattering out of sight. The grill face too turned onwards towards me. Thank you. You have no idea what. I let out a berserker howl as I brought down the shovel squarely on that back, twitching body, and it splattered with a wet crunch, defeating the bang against the hot grill it rested upon. The metal construct stood still for a silent, several agonizing moments before I finally began to pitch backwards, creaking like a rusty door before banging onto the ground, dead or asleep or whatever the shit I just did. I protruded it a few times before cautiously stepping out around it and continuing up. Something didn't want me to reach the top, and I felt pretty good about it.